When we hear Silk Road, what comes to mind? Probably camel caravans, dusty deserts, and merchants trading silk and spices between Rome and China. It's a powerful image, but it's only a fraction of the story. For centuries, this legendary network of trade routes wasn't just a long, empty road. It was a vibrant, living artery, and along its veins rose and fell mighty empires we've largely forgotten. These weren't just rest stops. They were centers of civilization, melting pots of culture, art, and ideas that shaped the world in ways we're only just beginning to understand. Today, we're pulling back the sands of time to uncover the lost empires of the Silk Road. Forget the simple narrative of East meets West. We're going on a journey to explore the dazzling civilizations that flourished in the heart of the ancient world. So, get ready, because we're about to rewrite the history you thought you knew. Let's begin our journey in the heart of Central Asia, a region often depicted as a vast, empty space on ancient maps. But this was the home of the Sogdians, the undisputed masters of the Silk Road. Hailing from the fertile valleys around modern-day Samarkand and Bukhara in Uzbekistan, the Sogdians were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They didn't build a massive, unified empire with a single ruler. Instead, their power was economic. They were the ultimate middlemen, the cosmopolitan merchants who connected the far reaches of the ancient world. Their language became the lingua franca of the trade routes, and their distinctive art, a fusion of Persian, Indian, and Chinese styles, traveled with them. Imagine their cities, bustling hubs filled with people from every corner of the known world. Zoroastrian fire temples stood alongside Buddhist monasteries and Nestorian Christian churches. Sogdian merchants established communities all along the Silk Road, from the borders of the Byzantine Empire to the heart of Tang Dynasty China. They were so influential that for a time, to be a merchant on the Silk Road was to be a Sogdian. Their success came from their incredible adaptability and knack for diplomacy. They navigated complex political landscapes, serving as advisors and diplomats in foreign courts, all while facilitating the flow of goods, ideas, and religions. Their story is a powerful reminder that an empire's strength isn't always measured by the size of its army, but by the reach of its influence. Now let's travel east to the edge of the Tibetan Plateau. Here, at the crossroads of major civilizations, emerged the Kushan Empire. If you've never heard of them, you're not alone, but their impact was immense. At its peak in the 2nd century AD, the Kushan Empire stretched from modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan into northern India and parts of Central Asia. They controlled a critical section of the Silk Road, effectively holding the keys to the gateway between East and West. The Kushans were originally nomadic people from the Central Asian steppe, known as the Yuezhi in Chinese records. But once they settled, they created something extraordinary. They minted some of the first gold coins in the region, featuring a fascinating gallery of deities. On one coin you might find a Greek god, on another a Zoroastrian deity, and on yet another the Buddha. This wasn't just random, it was a deliberate policy of cultural synthesis. The Kushan rulers, most famously Kanishka the Great, embraced this diversity. They became major patrons of Buddhism, helping it transform from a regional Indian faith into a major world religion that spread along the Silk Road into China and beyond. It was under Kushan patronage that the first human-like statues of the Buddha were created in the region of Gandhara. This new artistic style, a beautiful blend of Greco-Roman realism and Indian spiritualism, became the standard for Buddhist art across Asia. The Kushan Empire was a true melting pot, a place where ideas and art forms from different worlds didn't just coexist. They merged to create something entirely new and powerful. Let's move further into the sands, to the fearsome Taklamakan Desert, a place whose name is often translated as, "You go in, but you don't come out." But on the fringes of this unforgiving landscape, a string of oasis kingdoms blossomed, powered by the life-giving waters flowing from the surrounding mountains. One of the most remarkable of these was the kingdom of Khotan. Situated on the southern edge of the desert, Khotan was a vital stop for caravans. It was renowned for two things: its precious nephrite jade, considered more valuable than gold in China, and its profound devotion to Buddhism. For over 1,000 years, Khotan was a vibrant Buddhist kingdom. Legends tell of its founding by Indian princes, and it became a major center for Buddhist scholarship, attracting monks and pilgrims from across Asia. The city was filled with magnificent monasteries, stupas, and libraries housing priceless Sanskrit texts. Khotanese art, like that of the Kushans, was a unique blend of influences. You can see hints of India, Persia, and Greece, all woven into a distinctly local style. They were also masters of silk production themselves, having, according to legend, smuggled silkworms out of China. Khotan's story is one of resilience, a testament to how human ingenuity and faith can create a flourishing civilization in one of the world's most challenging environments. It thrived for centuries, a beacon of culture and commerce, before it was eventually absorbed by invading forces, its glory slowly buried by the desert sands. But not all the forgotten empires were sedentary. Some of the most powerful players on the Silk Road were nomadic confederations from the vast Eurasian steppe, and among the most formidable were the Xiongnu. Active from the 3rd century BC to the late 1st century AD, the Xiongnu created a massive tribal empire that stretched across modern-day Mongolia. To the Han Dynasty in China, they were a constant threat, a formidable northern rival. In fact, the First Great Wall wasn't built to keep out just anyone. It was specifically built to defend against the Xiongnu, but to call them simple barbarians is to miss the point entirely. The Xiongnu were a sophisticated political and military force. They developed a complex system of governance that allowed them to control a huge territory and diverse groups of people. And they were deeply involved in the Silk Road. They didn't just raid caravans, they controlled vital sections of the northern routes, taxing trade and demanding tribute from the Han court in the form of silk, grain, and other goods. This tribute was then traded westward, inserting the Xiongnu as a crucial, if often intimidating, link in the global trade network. Their interactions with China weren't just about conflict. There was also diplomacy, political marriages, and a constant exchange of goods and culture. The Xiongnu Empire eventually fragmented and disappeared from history, but their legacy endured. Some historians even theorize that a branch of the Xiongnu migrated westward and eventually became known to Europe as the Huns. They were a dynamic force that fundamentally shaped the political and economic landscape of the early Silk Road. Finally, we arrive at an empire whose art and culture are absolutely breathtaking, the Parthian Empire. Ruling over Persia, or modern-day Iran, and Mesopotamia from the mid-3rd century BC to the early 3rd century AD, the Parthians were the primary Western rivals to the Roman Empire. Their territory sat squarely in the middle of the Silk Road's main artery, and they controlled the flow of goods between the Roman world and the East for nearly 500 years. Chinese records referred to Parthia, or Anxi, as a great civilization with impressive cities and a savvy merchant class. The Parthians grew incredibly wealthy by taxing the caravans that passed through their lands. Roman aristocrats developed an insatiable appetite for Chinese silk, a luxury that had to pass through Parthian hands, much to the frustration of Roman emperors who saw vast amounts of Roman gold flowing eastward. But the Parthians were more than just toll collectors. They were brilliant horsemen and archers, famous for the Parthian shot, the tactic of feigning retreat while turning to shoot arrows back at the enemy. This military prowess allowed them to hold their own against the might of Rome for centuries. Their capital, Ctesiphon, near modern Baghdad, became a sprawling metropolis, one of the great cities of the ancient world. They fostered a unique culture that blended Hellenistic, or Greek, influences left by Alexander the Great with ancient Persian traditions. This created a distinctive Parthian identity, which in turn laid the groundwork for the Sasanian Persian Empire that would follow. The Parthians were the essential bridge, the central pillar that held the entire Silk Road structure together. From the merchant princes of Sogdiana to the nomadic warriors of the Xiongnu, from the Buddhist patrons of the Kushan Empire to the desert oasis kingdom of Khotan and the Persian gatekeepers of Parthia, these lost empires were the true heart and soul of the Silk Road. They weren't just points on a map. They were vibrant, complex worlds that fostered innovation, blended cultures, and transmitted ideas that would change history forever. The Silk Road wasn't just a road, it was a network of civilizations, each contributing its own unique thread to the rich tapestry of human history. Their stories, long buried under the sands of time and the footnotes of history books, deserve to be told. They remind us that history is often found not in the great capitals we all know, but in the forgotten crossroads in between. Thanks for joining us on this journey. If you found this as fascinating as I did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past. See you next time.